The common stick catfish, Farlowella vittata, is a curious creature. I hesitate to use the word common in regards to this genus because you won't normally find it at your local pet stores. Stick catfish are in fact rare among aquarists with the exception of tropical catfish lovers. They're not for beginning aquarists due to their rather finicky requirements for food, habitat, and tank companions. First-time Farlowella owners would be well advised to provide a separate aquarium in which to culture this genus. Some great qualities of stick catfish are that they will not obtain the enormous size of a Hypostomus plecostomus or exhibit the rambunctious behavior of some vigorous catfishes. In addition, they're excellent glass cleaners, they're peaceful, and they're fascinating pets. Stick catfish of the genus Farlowella are a broad group of at least 37 nominal species of poorly known sedentary catfish of moderate to swiftly flowing streams of the Amazon, Orinoco, and Paraguay drainage and the Maracaibo Basin. They inhabit the shallow streams and rivers where vegetation provides abundant cover for them. The bodies of stick catfish are slender and elongated, many times with a prominent rostrum. They can best be described as a mottled brown fish that resembles the sticks and debris of streams among which they seek anonymity from predators. Males can attain the size of 9 inches in total length, while females seldom exceed 7. The genus has 2 lateral dark stripes beginning at the tip of the rostrum, passing over the eyes, and ending at the tail, which are periodically interrupted on the caudal peduncle. You'll seldom see a stick catfish swimming as other fish do, but most often you'll see them bouncing lightly from substrate to substrate, using their pectoral fins, their tail, and sucker as leverage points to let the current move them gently along. Thus they maintain their disguise as sticks and debris. This is not a species that one will enjoy seeing them swim back and forth throughout the aquarium. They're very sedentary except when seeking out foods. They spend the majority of their time adhering to sticks and rocks with their specialized sucker mouth, rasping away at plant matter and other surface growth. One doesn't need to net and capture adults, as they try to continue their ruse to depict debris and seldom struggle. Fry and young juveniles will, however, avoid netting. The use of a net will, though, likely entangle their rostrums, leading to an injury. With such staid habits, the most dangerous operation with these fish is moving them from tank to tank or cleaning a tank without injuring them. Hand capture is the most reliable method, and if you don't move as to excite them, they are easily captured. I say this because of their great ability to blend into the substrate. If one removes leaves, whole plants, sticks, or rocks from the tank, the likelihood of also removing some juvenile or fry catfish is pretty high. Additionally, if you stir up loam from the bottom rocks while draining a tank, one will almost certainly miss the smaller fish, which appear to blend in. Another danger is in trimming your excess plant growth. Many times the fish will perch vertically in with plant stems so as to be invisible to the one who's doing the trimming. So I only work with plants that will not outgrow the aquarium, and I've stopped using gravel or fine sand as a substrate in my aquaria. These practices don't lend themselves to a particularly beautiful tank, but it does make it much more easy to keep the aquarium clean, and it's a lot safer for the fish. The suitability of Farlowella vittata to neotropical aquaria is excellent, as they're docile fish that won't harass other species. And with that said, they're also vulnerable to attack from other vigorous species, notwithstanding their armor-plated exteriors. I've found the most suitable tank mates to be other catfish of the genus Corydoras, most small tetras, platies, and other small peace-loving fish. My observation is that Farlowella vittata tends to be less nervous when you have other ditherfish in the tank. Here you can see an early setup of a 33-gallon aquarium that contains a group of spawning adults. Fortunately, this species' requirements for water temperature tend toward room temperature, approximately 20 to 24 degrees Celsius. As to water quality, they thrive in clean, flowing waters and can thrive in a wide range of water hardness. Water movement is much more important with stick catfish than with many other species. They will not find a suitable environment for spawning unless the water is moving. My aquaria contains sand-filtered water from the Arkansas River, which is moderately hard, about 175 milligrams per liter. It has a moderate alkalinity, about 118 milligrams per liter, and is alkaline, a pH of 7.9. It should be stressed that the oxygen requirements of stick catfish are high, probably due to their naturally occurring in fast-flowing streams. Poor water quality that may only annoy other fish will likely kill juvenile and fry stick catfish. Regular, frequent, high percentage water changes are necessary for culture and will prevent needless loss if one's careful to watch temperature and pH during changes. My preferred water exchange is 10 to 20% per day, but I do exchange up to 75% on a particular day when seeking to induce spawning. A word should be said about the need for aged water in this species. It's a balancing act that every experienced aquarist knows. Aged water, with its accumulation of tannic acid, lowers the pH and mimics the natural environment of riverine fish. However, the quality of this aged water can only be maintained if one quells the desire to overfeed them. Farlowella vittata prefer a planted tank with wood or other stems on which to perch. This mimics the streams in which they're found in the wild. Many times, if they do not feel threatened by other species, well, they will attach themselves vertically to the glass in shaded areas. In saying that, they don't like bright light, which can be contrary to your efforts to culture them. Any setup should contain ample areas of plant-shaded environment where they can seek rest. However, sufficient light is needed to culture the green algae and zooplankton upon which they primarily love to feed. Adults are very omnivorous, and I've found that their tastes are widely variable. However, zooplankton are as indispensable to raising fry catfish as brine shrimp, naupliata, other hard-to-raise fry species. Adults and juveniles happily accept shrimp pellets and algae wafers, and they'll actively engage in bottom feeding to obtain them. Breeding conditioning, though, is better accomplished with cucumber, zucchini, or a little calabacita squash fed from magnetic food clips suspended from the side of the aquaria. Be sure to use fresh, not overly ripe vegetables because they often enjoy the soft green rind more than the softer inner vegetable matter. Rarely, though, I'll feed them slices of avocado, which they relish, or even kale. But I would watch out for the kale because kale deteriorates quickly and it will release toxins in the water, which can and do cause die-off of your rooted plants. You may want to place several feeding stations in your large aquarium, as the males are very territorial over feeder placements. Interestingly, they will not touch yellow squash and some other vegetables. It seems that their taste in veggies is toward the darker green ones. However, I've never noticed them eating the cryptocorn species plants that I often use. The balance for this species is in feeding preferred foods in small quantities, keeping it fresh. Overripe vegetables quickly break down into blue-green algae food, so avoid that, and changing substantial portions of the water as nitrates rise. Farlowella vittata exhibit a sexual dimorphism that's easily noted once one begins a closer inspection of adults. At 2 years of age, sexing of individuals can begin. The males will grow about 10% larger than females in length, up to 9 inches in total length, but the obvious identifier is the odontoid scutes, found primarily on the head and rostrum of males. The rostrum of males will become approximately twice as wide as that of females and have minute dark bristles. The odontoids, as their name implies, are actually tiny short teeth. The time to breeding readiness is similar to that of many other catfish species, with breeding beginning possibly as 2-year-olds in very good condition, but much more likely as 3-year-old and older fish. As they are long-lived, you can breed your fish for many years. Conditioning is more important than age in breeding, and a varied and abundant diet is the key to early breeding. I try to keep my water at 22 degrees Celsius for optimal breeding. Now, regulating the seasonal photoperiod is not a reliable inducer of spawning in this species, as it is in some annual spawning catfish. In fact, I leave my tank lights on 24 hours a day to enhance the plant and the zooplankton growth in my breeder tanks. This actually enhanced their breeding frequency. Similar to the Corydoras catfish, the Farlowella responds much more readily to a change of water level and fresh water as a breeding stimulus. Breeding often begins within 24 hours of a substantial water change. Mature females can and will breed every other month if kept in breeding condition. Breeding males entice females to spawn with them on the vertical glass of the aquaria near the water surface in the overnight hours. More than one female often joins in, but one at a time until each has laid their eggs. This may take 24 hours. Usually, the females deposit 2 adhesive eggs side by side, starting closest to the surface, and then work downward until a double chain of eggs has been deposited and fertilized. This is not the rule, but generally speaking, this is their habit. The next female often picks up where the first female has left off or leaves a small space, and each may take up to 24 hours laying all her eggs. The clutches tend to be approximately 8 to 10 eggs for 2-year-olds, 12 to 16 eggs for 3-year-olds, and up to 30 eggs each for older females. The brood males guard the eggs and clean them until they hatch. That takes approximately 7 to 9 days. Males will often spar with their rostrums as if doing a side-to-side sword fight to establish dominance over a prime breeding site. I've even found males who were driven over the side of the tank in this combat, and on several occasions I've found one almost completely dried out after falling from the tank hours earlier. Upon placing them in the water again, they usually recovered in a day or so. Ripe females with swollen bellies will idle close by to check for a chance to breed. Oftentimes, they'll be enticed by another breeding male if they can't get the nod from the alpha male. So multiple females will begin looking for breeding males or wait their turn to complete spawning with the same male another female has laid eggs with. This process, once begun, may last several days from the time the initial water change was undertaken. Breeding behavior is noticeable as the male and female will hover on the glass at the breeding site, oftentimes quivering together in actual or practice spawning. In between, you will notice the female or the male both cleaning the area of the glass that is to be used for egg deposition. When the process is completed, the male will drive the female away and guard and clean the eggs until they hatch. The catfish eggs are very large and strong. They're seldom attacked by fungus as the male cleans them meticulously while guarding against other predators. The hatched fry immediately seek vertical surfaces near the water surface where they will adhere with their own sucker mouths and begin feeding in a few days after absorbing their yolk sac. This triggers them to leave the vertical surface of the glass and begin searching out food. Parental care is non-existent after the hatch. Fry most often seek out very strong current and orient themselves into it. They will not, however, seek out vegetable offerings early, so a pristine, clean tank will also be a death sentence for them. There needs to be an abundant supply of fresh algae or zooplankton for them to feed on. Once, in my desperation to find suitable fry catfish food, I made an error and a fortuitous discovery at the same time. The error was in introducing a large algae-covered rock from a nearby stream into my very clean aquarium as a food source, for I feared that the fry would have nothing at all to feed on. And in doing so, I broke all kinds of rules about properly treating for disease organisms and quarantine. My penalty was to have an outbreak of hair algae in my tank. Besides being unsightly, the hair algae also attracted other feeding debris to become lodged within it. The unintended good consequence of the action was that lots of new zooplankton was added to my system. I didn't want to disturb the tank since eggs had already been laid, and I left it all to grow. The fry emerged within a few days and were happily engaged in feeding amongst the clumps of the zooplankters growing in the algae, and the adults even trimmed the excess into a somewhat manageable growth. I believe that this had a similar effect to that of adding live rock to a marine aquarium. You don't always know what you're going to get when you do this. With as little bit of luck, my fry to juvenile survival percentage moved from a dismal 5% per hatch to about 30%. I know this is still a dismal hatch rate, but friends, I must emphasize the need to have plenty of green algae and zooplankton in the tank. You just can't grow it as fast as you see eggs being laid on the glass of your tank. So, for the same reasons, we need to be very careful to make a clean aquarium, but also one that is available to the fry fish so that they can feed immediately on a rich source of food. It should be noted that fry juveniles find sponge filters as a death sentence. They'll dive headlong into the filters in search of abundant food, but entangle their pectoral fins, and this causes their demise. For the same reason, don't ever net adults, juveniles, or dip fry in nets. Injury soon follows. So I don't advocate the addition of unquarantined material into the aquarium, but I would encourage other aquarists to devise methods of creating fry feeding habitat for the species involving plants and driftwood for the zooplankton and algae to have abundant surfaces to grow on, especially if you're going to create a tank for breeding purposes. I enjoy this species and enjoy their ways after many years of watching them, and it is up to us aquarists to also be the line of defense for many species who are dying in the wild. I wish you luck and in all of your experience that you may find great success in breeding this species.